Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Citizens Bulletin. Know your role as an informed Pennsylvania citizen, brought to you by Americans for Prosperity. As always, we are delighted to welcome our host, who is State Director for AFP, Americans for Prosperity, Ashley Klingen-Smith. Ashley, good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Kim. I hope everyone, all the listeners, enjoyed a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday, and it's so great to be back to work. So excited to be here.
Yes, indeed. And Ashley, before we jump into our conversation this morning, you have some very exciting news to share with our listeners. Someone I consider a personal friend has been added on to the Americans for Prosperity family. Would you like to introduce Linwood Holland and share with our listeners his role with the organization here in Pennsylvania?
Absolutely. He is on the line, and I am going to let him talk a little bit about his background, where he is, the kind of region he will be working in for AFP Pennsylvania. But we could not be more elated to have him joining our team as a community engagement director. He is going to work in all of the different pockets of policy that we cover, but he has got a lot of criminal justice reform advocates in the Philadelphia region, and so we are really excited to have him on board. So Linwood, welcome. I know you want to share your contact info, a little bit about yourself, so I'm going to give you the floor for a few minutes.
Thank you, and hi to everybody. I'm just so elated and glad to be brought on as a team member. My background has been, of course, helping in the political realm in Philadelphia and grassroots operation. So this is a great opportunity for me to reach out to as many people in the region as possible and to assist them with helping them gain knowledge and experience over things that we are, helping them with. I can be reached at my cell phone at 267-201-0972 or my email, which is lholland, HOLLAND, at afphq.org. I'll be glad to help people, and I'm looking forward to meeting more people in the region and engaging and helping them become involved with the process of helping us. So
that's awesome. So grateful for you joining us this morning. And, listeners, please reach out to Linwood again, 267-201-0972, and his email, lholland at afphq.org. He is ready and willing to work with you and partner with you, and he's going to be kind of your conduit to our training arm at the Grassroots Leadership Academy. And so just get excited because we could not have a better person with more energy and more passion for the liberty movement. So Linwood, thank you so much. You can feel free to get back to your business today, but thanks for joining us, and you have a good one, okay?
Thanks, everybody. Have a good holiday. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you, Holland.
Bye.
All right. So, Kim, if it is okay, I am so excited today to talk about occupational licensing. This is an area that Pennsylvania just made a huge, huge stride in on the reform front. And so with your permission, I would just like to talk a little bit about what occupational licensing is.
We'd like to hear about that.
Yeah, cool. What we're doing here in Pennsylvania, talk about some of the things that are being done across the country, and then share some stories of, impacted people right here in the Commonwealth. So does that sound good?
It sounds very much like a needed conversation. Please proceed.
Okay, great. So as many of you know, we have talked about on past calls, we've talked about economic opportunity and kind of our vision for that line of policy. And our vision is to empower people to earn their success. And then we've also talked about criminal justice reform, and that we really want and believe that an effective criminal justice system protects people and preserves public safety. It respects human dignity. It restores victims, and it removes barriers to opportunity for people with criminal records. And so occupational licensing reform really straddles both of those policy portfolios. And so I am so excited about what just happened in Pennsylvania just 2 short weeks ago. The Senate passed one of our principal bills that we have been working on, which was Senate Bill 637. It is called, the subject is just occupational licensure reform. And we have really been talking about this bill since it was introduced back in April. And there is a companion bill in the House, which is House Bill 1477. And its sponsors are Cheryl Delosier and Jordan Harris, who is from the Philly area. And then the Senate bill, which just passed the Senate, the full Senate 2 weeks ago, with a unanimous vote, which is such a rarity, Kim, as you know, in Harrisburg to achieve that. But it passed unanimously. And its prime sponsors were Senator John DeSanto, and Senator Judy Schwenk. And so this legislation, I'll read a little bit from their memo, and then I just want to talk about occupational licensing generally. But this legislation will require occupational licensure boards and commissions to apply one common set of rules when considering whether to deny, suspend, or revoke a license on the basis of a criminal conviction. So it's going to amend Pennsylvania's Criminal History Record Information Act to require that boards only withhold a license for convictions which are directly relevant to the practice of the occupation, and that the boards consider the nature of the offense, the amount of time that has passed since the conviction, evidence of the applicant's fitness to practice the occupation, and other relevant factors prior to withholding a license. In PA, we have over 30 occupational fields that require a government license or registration, or as many people like to say, a permission slip, just to work. And so many people who have paid their debts to society following incarceration are hindered from reentering the workforce when boards deny licenses due to convictions unconnected to the practice of their, desired profession. And so this is wasting taxpayer dollars as state correctional institutions train inmates in professional skills only for the person to be denied a license to practice once they are released. And so this legislation is also going to require that boards publish regulations to explain how the new Criminal History Record Information Act rules will be applied in the context of a particular profession, and provide the interested persons and provide that to interested persons can request pre-application notice of whether their criminal history record poses a potential barrier to licensure. And so this is really going to help ensure that boards are using criminal records in a fair and consistent way, and that individuals considering a training program have a fair opportunity to learn in advance what types of criminal history can be expected to pose a barrier to licensure, so that folks are not wasting money and time, which is their most valuable asset following a period of incarceration. And so really, An occupational license is just a permit from the government that allows you to work in the profession of your choice. You know, we believe that you should not need a permission slip to braid hair or work as a florist or even as an interior designer. We have states in America that have issued occupational licenses for fortune telling, Kim. This clearly has gotten away from the intent of what occupational licensing was initially founded for. The theory behind occupational licensing is that by restricting entry into an occupation, you're going to kind of weed out the charlatans and quacks and other people who may not be skilled. And so you'll increase the quality of service and you'll make the public better off by protecting their health and safety. That's the theory. But there is a problem, which is facts. Research has proven that those presumed benefits of licensure are not paying off. Consumers are paying more for goods and services as a result of licensing, and less people are being able to work in the profession of their choice. It is harmful to Americans simply looking to provide for their families and for themselves. The government sort of permission slip in the form of an occupational license really shuts the door to industries and inflates the cost of services. You know, the average lower income occupational license in some states is costing upwards of $500 and requiring, on average, 600 days of training just to begin work. To call, in my opinion, and Kim, please step in if you think, I'm overstating this, but to call those requirements a burden, I think is an understatement.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, they're standing between Americans and gainful employment. In the 1950s, and I think this is just so illustrative of how big a problem this has become so quickly. Just in the 50s, 1 in 20 Americans required a license for their line of work. And today that number is 1 in 4. And so, we have got to figure out a way to start removing barriers for incoming workers. And I'm just so excited that in Pennsylvania, we have those 2 bills that I just talked about, Senate Bill 637 and House Bill 1477. But, I think to have to complete a prescribed educational experience, pay a fee, take an exam, just is not workable and should not be acceptable to any of us. And so that, I think, was really reflected in the bipartisan sponsorship of the bills here in Pennsylvania, and then the unanimous Senate vote 2 weeks ago to pass this. And so I thought what I'd do is share a couple of stories of Pennsylvanians who have been affected. But I also just want to note that this trend of really reforming what is existing on the books by way of occupational licenses is spreading across the country. Back in April, Arizona passed a reciprocity bill, House Bill 2569. And what that did was allow Arizona to recognize all out-of-state licenses for people that move there. And so it was great because the hashtags that went viral in Arizona on social media around that bill were opportunity for all. Hashtag let them work. And to me, that is like the very spirit of America and of our workforce. And so it's crazy that we're now having to pass laws to get back to that spirit. But here we are. And it was really great because Ivanka Trump has been a huge advocate of occupational licensing on the federal front and has been a great voice. And so she retweeted the Arizona government saying excessive occupational licensing harms economic mobility and hurts low-income workers. And I just don't think she could be more accurate. And it's wonderful, I think, to have an advocate at the federal level. And before I get into the two stories about Pennsylvanians, you know, at Americans for Prosperity, we have a senior policy analyst for employment policy. His name is Austin Bannon, and he's actually born and raised in Northwest PA, which is so neat. They travel there regularly, although now he lives in Arlington, but he comes back to PA often. But really, he works primarily in this space. And, you know, I reached out to him before the show this morning just to ask if he had anything he wanted me to know. And, he was unable to join us. He's traveling, but he said, you know, occupational licensing really caught my attention as an issue when I learned how directly it touches all of us. So many service providers we rely on in society, he said, have to get permission to work directly from the government, which includes a lot of arbitrary training, testing, and fee requirements that don't relate directly to the ability of someone to provide great services. And so, like so many other issues, he said, occupational licensing turns out to be a situation where good intentions combine with the self-interest of politically connected practitioners. And now we have this growing set of government burdens that undermine competition and consumer choice without the added benefit of improved public health and safety. And I think, you know, that summation of this issue is brilliant. So I wanted to share that from Austin. But there's an incredible organization, the Institute for Justice, who represents individuals to take on kind of government and take on government institutions that are creating barriers to them kind of living their best life and earning their success, like we talked about earlier. And so currently, Institute for Justice is helping two individuals here in Pennsylvania, Courtney and Amanda, take on the cosmetology board in court to protect their right to earn a living. And so I wanted to share both of their stories, and I'm just going to read a little bit about both of them. So Miss Courtney, her last name is Havman, is a stay-at-home mom who is raising her baby boy with her husband in Yardley, PA. And so 5 years ago, she was really living a different life. She had a drinking problem. And as a result, between 2011 and 2013, she pleaded guilty to several misdemeanors stemming from 3 incidents. In one, she drove while intoxicated. In another, she illegally possessed drug paraphernalia. And in the third, she hit a security guard while drunkenly resisting arrest at a casino. And after that third incident, she realized that drinking was clearly destroying her life. And so she joined Alcoholics Anonymous. And after quite a bit of hard work, she has been sober for more than 5 years. During her recovery, she met the man who would become her husband, and they married in 2015. 2 years later, in 2017, she gave birth to their baby boy, and she considers herself living proof that recovery is possible. And so, you know, I think Courtney's story is one that is really amazing and one that warrants our advocacy. when it comes to her wanting to just work as an esthetician. And the other individual that we want to highlight is Miss Amanda. Her last name is Spillane, and she is now getting her life back on track. She was hooked on drugs as a teen. She committed several crimes, landed in prison for 2 years, and when she got out, she was determined not to waste the rest of her youth. So she moved back in with her parents, started working full-time at McDonald's, and spent nights attending cosmetology school so she could have a career. She became absolutely passionate about cosmetology, got a job offer at a salon before she even finished school. But when she applied for her cosmetology license, the PA Board of Cosmetology slammed the door on her dream. The board claimed she lacked good moral character because of her past offenses and was unfit to give facials or tweeze hair. She was shocked, she was heartbroken, and she was, out of a job. And her story is not unique. In recent years, dozens of women have been denied licenses because of criminal convictions irrelevant to the practice of cosmetology. And so, this good moral character clause does not apply to gentlemen wanting to become barbers. And so we've really got to take a look at what these laws are doing, and know what they're doing. We have stories like these from Amanda and Courtney, and so now we're working to get rid of them. And so these bills that I talked about would do that. Also, this lawsuit that the Institute for Justice is representing Courtney and Amanda with was filed on December of last year. And so it's currently, being litigated, but it challenges that good moral character requirement for cosmetologists. And so it would establish that the general rule that licenses cannot be withheld for unrelated crimes. And what's wonderful, Kim, is that this is going to impact all professions, not just cosmetology. And so the ruling is expected in the summer of 2020. And we're also working, also on the legislation, House Bill 1477 and Senate Bill 637, to get that through both chambers and get that to the governor's desk. But, one of the Institute for Justice attorneys, Erica Smith, that's worked on this case, she said, you shouldn't have to prove to the government that you're a good person to have a job. We want people who have broken the law to reenter society, get their lives back on track, and get a job. We've got to be making that easier for them and not harder. In PA, barbers don't need to have good moral character in order to work. If you don't need good moral character to shave a hair, should you need it to tweeze one? And hopefully everyone listening has the same instinctual response to that. No. And so, Amanda was quoted as saying, if I could get the license to be an esthetician, I would have more money. I would be able to support myself and not rely on the state for things like health insurance and food stamps. I would be self-sufficient and give more to charity. And I think, having just celebrated Thanksgiving, and I think that's a great tone to end on. We have got to allow people like Amanda to do just that, right? Earn their success and then start, contributing to their communities. And that's what she wants to do. So we've got to kind of remove those barriers, and I'm thrilled to be playing a role in our chapter, to be playing a role in helping folks like her do just that.
Excellent report, Ashley. Clear and concise. And what, if anything, do you want listeners to do with this information? Should they be in touch with their elected representatives and senators here in Pennsylvania?
Absolutely. So as I said, Senate Bill 637 has already passed. It has already passed the full Senate, and so now it currently is in. Well, actually, I don't think it's actually been referred to a House committee quite yet because this just received that final passage. But the House bill is currently referred to Judiciary Committee. We are praying that it is going to run on December 9th. And so what is most critical is for you to call your state representative and tell them to enthusiastically support House Bill 1477, occupational licensing reform. There are currently over 36 sponsors of this bill. Everyone from, the city of Philadelphia representatives to folks in the middle of Pennsylvania, all the way to Pittsburgh that are on that sponsorship list. So it doesn't matter if your member is a sponsor or not. At this point, we would love to see this pass the House with, again, a unanimous vote. So if you're able to, pick up the phone, call your House member, and if you don't know who that is, simply shoot our inbox a note, info@afphq.org. We will look up who your member is, get that back to you, get you their phone number so you can make that call. But again, folks, we are a grassroots organization, and so our power is in you and you activating on what we talk about on the show. And so please pick up the phone, call your member, and you can trust that we're amplifying your voice in Harrisburg.
And just one very, very final thing here, Ashley. For listeners who want to receive policy updates on Pennsylvania news, I know that AFP provides that. How can they get on that mailing list?
Yeah, the best thing for you to do is just email that inbox, info@afphq. Just say, hey, put me on your newsletter, please. But the most up-to-date and breaking news source for us is our social media channels. So on Facebook, just search @PAAFP, no hyphen there, just PAAFP, and you'll find our Facebook page, and on Twitter, @AFP Pennsylvania, because all of our press releases, all of our iVolunteer petitions and letters are linked right there on those channels and in real time. So that is really another great source in addition to a newsletter.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Ashley. Excellent report as always. Listeners, thank you for being with us. We wish you an excellent rest of the day. And remember to tune in next Monday at the same time for another report from Citizens Bulletin.